Good morning. Welcome. Today is Friday, July 31st. How's it going? My name is Angela. I'm a front-end developer and what am I? A front-end developer and a software engineer in St. Paul, Minnesota. And welcome to the channel. On this channel, we mostly do vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And today we are starting another full stack database app. I was looking at the title thing, the starting, and I was like, oh, I didn't change that. But then I was like, oh, we're actually doing that again. So today we're starting a new project called the Jane Austen database. And the Jane Austen database is basically, well, if you don't, most people know who Jane Austen is. She was an author who lived during the, what do we call it, the Regency era in England. She is the original architect of the rom-com. She basically wrote the formula for romantic comedy. She wrote 6 books that were published during her lifetime. She had some other things published after she died. She was only in her 40s when she died, and she's been dead for 200 years. All of her books are in the public domain. So I downloaded all of her books. I haven't pulled this up yet. Let me get this pulled up. I downloaded a plain text version of all of her books. We can take a look at this here. I got started working on this, but we are just in the beginning stages of planning this. So I can tell you that today is going to be like a planning day for sure. My goals for today are that we sort of organize our prompts and get ready. I don't think we're going to actually do any prompts today. I also want to make sure that we are being very clear about what the expectations are, because I made assumptions with the YouTube transcript database that I made assumptions about how that was going to be built, but I didn't explicitly say what I wanted. I really relied on ChatGPT to write the prompts for Codex. And I think that the process did go smoothly for the most part for being our first vibe coded full stack app. But I think, okay, so one example of something that didn't turn out the way I would have preferred is that I assumed that it would be an Express app, and it was pure Node. And I remember thinking at the time, oh, I thought this would be Express, but I didn't explicitly ask for Express. I don't think I read the prompts thoroughly enough, so I don't know what we even asked for. So we're going to read all of the prompts today and look at it. We are going to probably need ChatGPT to help us refine some things, but I just feel like the first project was such a good exercise because it really helped me understand what I do and don't want. So there's that. So that's my point, is that we're going to be much more explicit about what we actually want. Hold, please, one moment. Allergies. Okay. Yeah. Does that make sense? I mean, if you were here for the process, you basically saw me having these conversations with ChatGPT, right? Having ChatGPT write the prompts. I think, yeah, I just learned a lot doing the YouTube transcript database. I can see that I have a lot to learn about building full stack apps. If you don't know, if you're new here, first of all, welcome. I'm a front end developer. I've been on the front end my entire career. I have mostly worked in marketing. I am very UI focused. So I'm very UI focused, accessibility, search engine optimization, because hello, marketing. I have a software engineering degree. I understand what a full stack app is. I've built a couple of full stack apps myself. I've been reflecting a lot though the last week or so about how even though I have this software engineering degree, and interestingly enough, I have a graduate certificate in full stack development, they really did not teach us. And I'm not blame shifting. Just hear me out. They did not teach us in school like what is it, system design, like maybe they did, I don't know how to explain it. It's like I learned Java, I learned Python, I learned MySQL, I took software engineering 101. um I don't feel like they did a good job connecting all the dots. I don't know how else to explain it. um Yeah. So that's again, I'm not blame shifting. I'm not holding my school accountable for not teaching me those things because here's the thing. I'm a self-taught front-end developer. I started my career in WordPress. I had a wonderful career before I went back to school. And the only reason I did go back to school is because I worked at a university that had a software engineering program and it was free. And I was like, it would be crazy not to do this. It was one of the most challenging experiences of my life because of the back end programming, the algorithms, the what do you call it? The data science, just the data structures, things like that. That was very, very difficult for me. I mean, it was like a wing and a prayer to get through that program. Um, so this is new to me to put all of these pieces together, especially because I started my career in WordPress. And to me, WordPress is like the original full stack app because it's got the database and it's got the front end, but it kind of does all the work for you. You really do not need to have a plan like when you build your own full stack app. So I'm just appreciating what the back end and the full stack people do even more. I already had an appreciation for what back end and full stack people do, but now I have even more of an appreciation. And I've had these moments over the last couple of weeks where I'm like, how do people do this? Or I say to myself, people do this? People do this. People build backends. They build databases. They it's it isn't just that they build the database and they like think about how the database should be structured, then they build the API. That is wild to me. And I have so much more appreciation for the folks out there who do that full time. And I know why they're good at it. It's because they've devoted hundreds, thousands of hours of their life to learning it and doing it and being good at it. Just like I have devoted hundreds and thousands of hours of my life to the front end and HTML and CSS and now vanilla JavaScript. And I have a deep understanding of accessibility and search engine optimization and UI UX experience. And it's the reason why I can write CSS in my sleep with both hands tied behind my back most days of the week, right? I don't know. It's fun, it's cool, it's terrifying. I'm having a blast. I'm so glad that I'm doing it. I watched this short today from Michael Paulson, the Primogen, and he was talking about just this we are constantly being spoon-fed. Um, you're going to be left behind. If you're not doing XYZ, you will be left behind. And just this, we're just having this shoved down our throats right now. And it's really unfair because I think for the most part, a lot of us are working really hard to stay on top of technology that seems to change weekly at this point. And any day that you're learning, you are ahead. You are not behind. Any day that you are learning and you are trying to stay on top of things and learn new things, you are most certainly ahead. So what's my point? My point is that build vibe coding has turned out to be a much different experience than I thought it would be. I am learning so much. I am developing a deep appreciation for what full stack and backend developers do. I'm excited to keep learning and understanding and figuring out how to put all these pieces together. I am still excited about AI because it has streamlined so much of the work, and I'm happy for that because I don't want to spend all that time writing all that code myself. I want to write some code myself, but I don't want to write all of it myself. And I think it's a good thing. I'm not worried about being left behind because every day that I show up and I learn something new, I think that's a good thing. So I don't know, little random, little bit random, just trying to organize my thoughts the last week or so and figure out where I'm at with all of this. Mostly I'm having fun. How does that relate to the Jane Austen project? Okay, that was kind of my original point, right? It relates to the Jane Austen project because I have some ideas about how I need this to look. And that is a direct result of the project we just did. So number one, it obviously needs to be an Express app. It can't just be pure Node on the back end building that API. That is something that I noticed when Codex was building, right? But really that came up in a comment that I had this week on one of my shorts. I think I did a short about how Codex left something out of the front end that I felt like it should have just known to include, but of course, we can't make assumptions about what Codex does or doesn't know. And the comment was that looks like a pure node back end. No human would touch that. And I thought that was actually a good comment, an interesting comment, because I was like, yeah, I noticed that right away that it wasn't expressed, and I think it should have been. So I guess I'm figuring out is it the limitations? What am I figure? How do I express this thought that I have? I think that even though I'm asking Codex to do the work for me, I still have to, this is so stupid to say out loud. I can't let it make those decisions for me. I have to be so explicit about what it is that I want. And part of me is like, well, if I'm going to be that explicit, maybe I should just do it myself. Well, that's not the point. That's not the point, is it? Yeah, I don't know. We just learned a lot. So we're going to go through all of those prompts for the YouTube transcript database today. We're going to read them. We're going to modify them. Like I said, this next Jane Austen database project is going to be very similar to the YouTube transcript project, but a little bit different. And the front end's going to be way cooler. Trust me, way cooler. So, okay. Well, should I say hello to the chat? Let's say hello to the chat. You know me. Sometimes I just need to get it all off my chest. Right when I hit go live. Let me get the chat ready here. Oh, there we go. One more spot. One more spot. Okay. Gogo Elmo is here. Gogo Elmo Malik Robinson. He is our mod in the chat. Kunal is here and says, hello, how are you? Do you have an HTML, CSS, and JavaScript tutorial on this channel? Tutorial, no. Many projects. I have many projects on this channel because I believe in project-based learning that are all vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So if you go to my channel and look at the projects or just look at HTML, CSS, and JavaScript projects, what you're going to find there are start to finish HTML, CSS, JavaScript vanilla projects. No Node, no package manager, no React, no Tailwind, nothing like that, just vanilla, where you see me literally start with index.html, style.css, script.js, and build the entire thing. Lots of landing pages, a few full websites where we have like, an about page and a blog page and things like that. That is the best way to learn, in my opinion. Courses they introduce you to the topic, they teach you the syntax. Tutorials answer specific questions. Project is was where the real learning is where the real learning happens, my friends. So if you are trying to get good at this, literally this is what I've been talking about for the last 17 minutes. If you're trying to get good at this, you need to practice. You need to practice. You need to like learn from what you just did. Start a project. This is the most important part. Finish a project and then start another project and then finish another project. And then take what you learned from the first project and apply it to future subsequent projects. That's the real learning. That's really how the learning happens in web development, software engineering, software development, whatever you call it, wherever you are in your journey. That's how it happens. So I hope that you get some benefit from some of those project videos. Um, there are a lot, almost all of the project videos, a few I recorded separately, but almost all of them are the projects that I built during live streams, and then I edited out the chat and the talking and things like that. So they are very, very focused projects with timestamps. Um, some of them many hours long. I think my most popular project video is like 12 hours long. I don't know if I would do that anymore. I don't know if I would take that approach. That was like a year ago I was doing stuff like that. Um, but yeah, the project videos for sure. Those are great ways to learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So I hope that helps. Okay, and maybe this is a good time because I sometimes forget. Do me a favor, like the video, subscribe if you're new here. Liking the video helps the algorithm, helps get this pushed out to more people who are interested in this type of content. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'm here every Saturday and Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, and I try to drop in an additional 1 or 2 days a week. During the week, for Fridays at noon, I'm enjoying this. Sometimes we do like a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday type of deal. So yeah, I'm generally here 2, 3, 4 days a week, Saturday and Sunday for sure. So, and Kunal says, thank you. Well, you're welcome. I hope that helps. And thank you for being here and hanging out with us. I appreciate it. So there's that. Okay. So, here's Jane Austen, the Jane Austen database. We kind of got started. So here's all of the books. So Emma, Mansfield Park, Northanger Abbey, Persuasion, Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility. These are her 6 main books. There's also Lady Susan, Love and Friendship, and yes, friendship is intentionally spelled that way. And then there's the Letters of Jane Austen. So all of these, I think there's 9. Yeah, all 9 of these are plain text from, what is it called? Why can I never remember? The Gutenberg Project. And it's in the public domain because they're like 200 years old. Here's the job. Here's the job. Where basically I had ChatGPT help me write a prompt for Codex to organize a JSON file of all the books, just to identify the characters and the locations. And then the characters, a lot of the characters have aliases. So like in Pride and Prejudice, Elizabeth Bennet often goes by Lizzie or Miss Bennet, things like that. So let's actually look at our metadata. We need to organize this into folders. We'll do that next. So here's the Pride and Prejudice metadata report. There are 61 chapters. There are 5,899 sentences. There are 2,121 paragraphs. There are 48 characters, and there are 49 locations or place entries. And a location could be like London, or it could be, Pemberley, which is Mr. Darcy's estate, right? Or Northanger or something like that. And then it has like a little summary, character and alias ambiguity. Miss Bennet is inherently context dependent because Elizabeth Bennet has sisters and they're all ultimately referred to Miss Bennet depending on where in the story you are, things like that. place uncertainty. So Pemberley, Netherfield, Rosings can refer to an estate, its principal house, or the household by metonymy. Well, I've never even heard that word before. So let's see here what the actual JSON looks like. So we've got our chapter count, our sentence count, our paragraph count, and then we've got an object for each character. There's a little note, an alias, an ID. So I'm thinking that in the database or the filtering, here's how I imagine this. So there's this thing in Pride and Prejudice. There's this scene. Let's see if we can find it. Pride and Prejudice. Potato. Really? Is that just a movie thing? Come on, Mr. Collins. Oh, this must have been, that must have been something specific to the movie, the thing about the potatoes, and not in the book. That's interesting. Oh, during the dinner. Okay, I'm not going to be able to find it. Here's my point. The reason I decided to do this, I've read all of these books. I've seen multiple adaptations of all of the Jane Austen movies. Sometimes there's like a scene or something happens in the book or the movie, and I can't remember. I want to go back and read it again. I know that that's nerdy, but sometimes I'm just like, we're thinking about something and I want to go back and read it again or find it or mark the chapter or whatever. I don't remember where it is. I don't know how to find it. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool to build a database just like the YouTube transcript database where every sentence is an entry in the database, and then I could go to the filter, search, find that spot in the book, and then go to that chapter. And then also, once that sentence is highlighted, I could just keep reading. We could turn it into an e-reader where you could just continue to read. Maybe you land on the app and it's not, you don't search at all. Maybe you just want to read the book and it's just a nice web-based e-reader experience. I want to do that too. So in order to do that though, I wanted to make sure that you could filter if you wanted to. So maybe if you filtered by Mr. Darcy, you would have a list of results of every chapter where Mr. Darcy appears, and then you would see that sentence with his name, kind of like the transcript database where every result is a transcript, and then within that chapter or within that result, you have the list of the excerpts or the sentences where that phrase or that keyword appears. So, and in order to do that, in order to have a drop-down filter of all the characters, you have to have like this JSON, right? So we've got all of the characters, and then we've got all of the locations, just like this. So we did this, I did this, Codex and ChatGPT and I, the three of us, we did this for every single book. So I do have a lot of the prep done. So let's go in now for this metadata and actually create folders so these aren't just sitting in here willy-nilly. And then let's go grab our prompts for the YouTube transcript database and make a copy of those, and we'll read through those and see what we need to do differently in order to start prompting. And I fully expect that we will have the backend built this weekend. That's what I'm thinking. And then we can jump right into the front end where we build that e-reader experience, which I think think of like a theme switcher where you go from light to dark. I think an e-reader is the same thing, where we have toggles and slides, and it's a CSS, right? It's an event that adds a class, and we can change fonts, we can change colors, we can change the text size, we can change backgrounds, things like that. So I think it's going to be really cool. Like I have a vision in my head. And then of course, the thing that's going to be different about this from the YouTube database is that in the YouTube database, it links to a YouTube video with a timestamp. So if you search by keyword, you're searching a transcript of my video, and then it links to the timestamp in the actual YouTube video. What's different is that we are going to need templates for chapters and moving forward through chapters and moving backwards through chapters. So that's the thing that's going to be really distinctly different about this API and how this gets displayed. And it's going to be more templated, right? Because we direct off the app in the YouTube transcript database, but not here. So that's going to be the big difference. Okay. Let me get, how do we want to do this? How do you want to do this, Angela? We can just do it right here. So we've got Emma. And then we've got Lady Susan. Okay. Love and friendship. Love and FREINDSHIP. Love and friendship. Okay. Mansfield Park. I did not love Mansfield Park. I know people really like that book. I thought it was infuriating. Mansfield Park. Northanger Abbey. Now, also not my favorite. Northanger Abbey is the only book that I only read once. And I honestly just don't even remember that much about it. I was so underwhelmed by it. For sure, Persuasion, Pride and Prejudice, and Sense and Sensibility are hands down my favorites. I think Sense and Sensibility is for sure my favorite book. Persuasion, there is a movie adaptation of Persuasion there are two movie adaptations of Persuasion that I love. The one with Syrian Hines and Amanda Root from like the 90s is my hands down 100% absolute favorite Jane Austen adaptation of all Jane Austen movie adaptations. It is so good. I love it so much. There's also a Persuasion adaptation that is more recent within the last couple of years with what's her name? Dakota Johnson. She did a really good job. Some people didn't like that movie. I liked it. I thought it was really good. And then of course the Keira Knightley, Matthew Macfadyen, 2005 Pride and Prejudice, also a very, very good movie. We all love the ending where Mr. Darcy walks across the field. That was not part of the book. That they made that part up, but it is so good and a lot of people really like it. And if you go on social media, there are couples who recreate that scene and film it for social media, which I think is wild, but it is really good. I do like it. And then every single Sense and Sensibility adaptation that I've ever seen is really good. All good. We love them all. But I think Sense and Sensibility is my favorite book to read. I think Persuasion is my favorite movie adaptation. Not all of them, but two of them are really, really good. I don't know. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but man, I like it. I'm a Jane Austen lady. What do you love? Tell me what you love. Persuasion. I spelled that right? Yes. And the fact that the books are all in the public domain and that we could even do things like this is pretty cool. Pretty cool. And I think I will turn this into a project series once we're done with it. I think it's just too good not to. So it's wrong. No, that's not what I want. The letters of Jane Austen. Okay, so now we have all of our metadata organized into folders. So that's really going to help. So now we've got jobs. Let's add a folder here. So one job is metadata, which that job is kind of done, right? And then I feel like another job could be, that's in the wrong folder, I think. So another job could be the database jobs, or we'll just call it backend. There. So let's copy over our prompts from the YouTube transcript library. We'll put them here. Let's read them through, and then we can edit them as needed. So let's see here. Projects. Okay. So here's the YouTube database, jobs. So I'm just going to copy. Paste. Okay. Beautiful. And then before we get any further, I'm pretty sure that I have a GitHub set up for this. Let me double check. I do have a GitHub set up. Oh, look at that. I even have like a README. If you're interested, I will make sure that this gets updated down in the description. I'll also put it in the chat. And then let's go ahead and commit before we go any further. Updating the repo with jobs. Okay. Nice. Okay. So this would be, so these are the prompts, and we'll have to look at the other prompts because I know that there were things that we did differently, right? This is a multi-step project. Please complete only this job. Do not anticipate future jobs or begin implementing anything, blah, blah, blah. Prompt 1, analyze transcript format. Objective, analyze the approved transcript of directories and document the transcript format. Do not write application code. Read requirements.md. Okay, so I think we're going to need that as well. I think I'm going to have to open up the YouTube database project. We're going to end up copying over more prompts, I bet. I'm really trying to see if we can rely on ChatGPT a little less this time. Yeah, just a little less this time. So what were the requirements? YouTube transcript database requirements. Goal, build a private searchable database of YouTube live stream transcripts to help locate source material for. All right, well, do we already have something over here? We've got instructions. This is to do the metadata. Metadata, this job analyzes source material and produces structured metadata for later import into an application. And then here's the README. This repository, okay, this really is a README. Okay, so let's see here what our requirements are. These were the requirements for the YouTube. Build a private searchable database of YouTube live stream transcripts to help locate source material for. So this would be different. The database is not an AI application. It is a transcript search tool. Architecture, one application. There is an SQLite database, a backend API, front end. And so let's make sure that we actually put in here express.js so we can be very explicit about what we want. Should we just copy this over? I think we need to copy this over to requirements. Requirements.md. Yeah. Okay. Build a searchable database of Jane Austen's novels to help locate source material for an e-reader, right? That's what it is. The database is not an AI application. It is a novel/book search tool. This is the Jane Austen database V1 requirements. I really see these prompts as being like my little toolkit for future applications. That's why I think this is so important to actually read these prompts, feel comfortable editing these prompts, feel comfortable asking for very specific things and understanding what we're asking for. I just think this is really important. So architecture, one application, front end, back end, Express.js, SQLite. I'm fine with this SQLite. One Git repository. The front end and the back end live together in the same project. I'm fine with that. Source of truth. The local content agent repository is the source of truth. Okay, that's different this time, isn't it? It's the books. So we've got the books, but we've also got the metadata. Do we want to put a copy of the book inside the metadata folder? And then we can just say the source of truth is the metadata directory. I feel like that makes sense. Okay. So I don't think we need the word local. I think we could just say the metadata folder is the source of truth. Specifically, can say Emma, Lady Susan, love and friendship. I spell friend wrong. Love and friendship. Mansfield Park. Northanger. Abbey. Persuasion. Pride. And Pride and Prejudice. Sense and sensibility. The letters of Jane Austen. Yeah, can we just like make duplicate? Can I copy and then come down here and paste? Yes, I can. Let's do it. Lady Susan, copy, paste. Love and friendship, copy, paste. Mansfield Park, copy, paste. Northanger Abbey, paste. Pride and Prejudice, paste. Sense and Sensibility. And the letters of Jane Austen. Got it. Okay. Let's get back to our requirements. Okay. Source of truth. The metadata folder is the source of truth, specifically metadata, all of these. The importer reads the local file system. It does not read GitHub. Sure. Import configuration. The importer reads an explicit list of approved transcript directories. So I would say of approved book, not directories. I guess maybe directories, because each book has its own directory, but there's also a metadata file, right? Why? I thought I fixed that. Okay, transcript directories. So we would want this to be, so these are the directories. So I guess we would just say Emma, Lady Susan, love and so those are the examples. Import process. Yeah, we're only going to need to run the importer once, right? Because the transcript directory was like an ongoing thing where I had to be able to rerun the importer every time I finished with new transcripts. So every importer run reads the approved metadata directory metadata directory configuration, traverses every approved directory, reads and validates every markdown metadata file in those directories. Well, it's not markdown. So we might need ChatGPT to help us reword some of this. I'm not quite sure how to reword some of this. Reads and validates every plain text and JSON metadata file in those directories. Parses metadata and time-stamped metadata chunks. Well, we don't have time-stamped, so it's just, I think we have to define what a chunk is. In this instance, a chunk is a sentence. Parses metadata and sentence. Do we just say sentence? Sentence chunk. Rebuilds the SQLite metadata and FTS data. Commits the replacement only after complete import succeeds. No incremental updates in V1. And the reason we did this, no incremental updates in V1, the reason we decided to delete it and redo it is so if I went back and changed old transcripts that had previously been imported, we needed to capture that, right? So it was just like delete it and redo everything. But what's going to change in a book that's already existed for 200 years? Nothing's going to change. So database stores. Each transcript should include at a minimum each novel / book should include at minimum the book title, the book date. Okay, so I think this is where we're actually going to capture some of this stuff, right? So what do we have here? We have a book title. I don't think we really have a published date. That's interesting. Maybe we might need to get that. Book title, book date. I think we want the book ID. The book ID. Well, we know the author. Here's the Gutenberg ID, the source file. We probably want the chapter count, the sentence count, and the paragraph count. We need those things for our e-reader. The characters, the locations, the character aliases, aliases, and the location aliases. Then we've got the relative transcript path, the transcript text. So the relative book path, the book text, and then the sentence book chunks. That's what a chunk is. It's one sentence. The relative file path is derived automatically from the folder structure. So not this, which is technically still true, but it's the folder structure that we just created. So example would be metadata, Emma, and then it would just be emma.txt. Whoops. Or it would be metadata Emma metadata JSON. Emma metadata JSON. No additional metadata field is required. Search. SQLite, this is where we have to change this because we added title search. We started with keyword search, keyword and exact phrase, and then we added title. So it's still keyword and exact phrase. It's just where does it search? Those two things, right? So it supports keyword search and exact phrase search. No AI, no embeddings, no vector database. Filters. Current planned filters. Open keyword search, project dropdown, month, year dropdown, and sort. Okay, so this is where we get to tell it now. The filters should be a character dropdown. It's location, or I think we're just calling it place. Location / place dropdown. I think we should have a book title dropdown. I'm not going to worry about sort because I think all sorting will happen on the front end. So I don't think we need to include any sorting in the API itself. So what else do we need? I think we just want the open keyword search, a list of characters, a location or a place dropdown, and a book or a title dropdown. And I think here's what I want to have happen. So I don't think we need to do additional metadata or a date range. So I think we can take this out. I'm just trying to visualize what this filter is going to look like. So we have like an open text search for the keyword or exact phrase. So then we would have a dropdown that says keyword or exact phrase. Then we would have a dropdown for all of the characters. Then we would have a dropdown for all of the locations. Then we would have a dropdown for all of the book titles. So that's 4 dropdowns and 1 open search. Here's the other thing that I want. If a user selects Emma from the book title dropdown, the character drop down and the location drop down should update to reflect only characters and locations from Emma. Here's the other thing that I'm wondering. So let's say that let's say you land on the app and there's one huge drop down of every single character from every single Jane Austen book. Is it one big alphabetical list, or are they grouped by book? So would you see all of the characters from Emma and then all of the characters from, Lady Susan, all of the characters from Sense and Sensibility? I kind of think that it should just be one gigantic list of characters, alphabetized. Why not? Why not? Why not every single character just in one big list? But if you go to the book title drop down and you choose Emma, that list needs to update and be reflected based on that, right? So that's something that has to go into the early database design. I think that's something that you could definitely do in the front end, but I would like ChatGPT, I would like that to happen in the database. I don't want that to be a front end task. So I'm sure ChatGPT will tell us if that's the right or the wrong approach, but I think this is the right approach. Or maybe it is an agnostic approach. Maybe it doesn't matter. I don't know. We'll find out. So that's 4 drop-downs and 1 open keyword search. And then it's either a keyword search or an exact phrase search. If a user selects Emma from the book title dropdown, the character dropdown and the location dropdown should update to reflect only characters and locations from Emma. Okay, sorting. Front-end responsibility, sort field. Date, match count, relevance, project. Sort direction. I mean, see, we didn't really do any sorting, so I'm kind of thinking about just taking this out. It can just be a front-end responsibility. So let's just take this out. Front-end responsibilities, the search form, the filters, the results table, the client-side sorting, copy selected transcript paths. I'm just going to take that out because I just don't think it matters. Backend responsibilities, traverse the metadata directory, import plain text and JSON, parse plain text and, I suppose I should be doing this capitalized, JSON, populate SQLite, execute FTS queries, return JSON. So part of me wonders, here's the other thing I'm wondering. Follow me here. So we have a JSON of all of this metadata. Do we import this JSON into the database and then build a new API? Doesn't this count as the API of the metadata? I'm curious about that. Should we put that in here as a question, or should we just make note of that and ask about it? Copy feature. So we didn't end up doing this, so we can take this out. This is, how do we feel about this? I'm liking it. I was worried that this was going to be very intimidating. but I like it. Okay. Explicitly out of scope. Well, chat logs, JSON, transcript, exports, AI. We can AI search, RAG embeddings, automatic tagging, incremental imports, pagination, vector databases. Is pagination out of scope though? Because we're building an e-reader, so that kind of makes me feel like we may need pagination. So I'm going to take that out and let's add that to our mental list of things to ask about. Okay, proposed structure. So here's where this is a little bit different. So this is just called Jane Austen. And then we've got, okay, so this would be data and the database. This would be scripts and the import script. Server. Okay. Okay, so this makes me think that we did not ask for Express. If this is the server, that means that we did not ask for Express. Right? So this, we have to ask ChatGPT about that. This is probably why it's a pure node backend. Okay. And then this is the client. Okay. Transcript, videos, table. So we don't need this because this is, we're not doing this. Search result granularity. One API search result represents one matching book chunk. Book sentence chunk. If multiple chunks from the same book match the query, the API returns multiple results. Each result includes the parent book metadata, the matching chunk excerpt, not a timestamp. Well, it's not a timestamp, probably the chapter, right? Not a URL. So the matching chunk excerpt or sentence, the chapter, and the book path, I guess. The front end may later group, collapse, or deduplicate results by book, but the API preserves chunk level matches. Okay. The project owner will implement the final front-end structure, presentation, interactions, and styling. Codex may provide an initial semantic HTML shell, an API fetch example, a minimal proof of concept render. Fine. Any Codex-generated front-end must remain deliberately minimal and disposable. The backend API and its JSON response contract must be completed before the final front end is implemented. API contract. The backend must return front end ready JSON. The front end must not inspect raw SQLite rows, calculate stream offset timestamps. So we don't need that. Construct YouTube live timestamps. Derive relative transcript paths. I think this would be book, but I'm also not sure if that is important. The API contract must be documented and represented by realistic JSON fixtures before the final front end is built. Okay, so we made it through the requirements. I definitely have some questions. again, if you're not a developer and you're vibe coding, I don't know. How are you doing this, man? This is so complicated. Okay, so there's the requirements. Let's take a shot at number one. Okay, read the requirements, scope. Inspect only the approved transcript directories provided for this job. So this is different because everything's ready to go. So I think we can just say inspect. I feel like we don't have to have this list, but maybe we do. I feel like we can just say look for everything. Inspect the metadata directories provided for this job. Treat these directories as the complete scope of analysis. Do not inspect or make assumptions based on any other directory. Determine required and optional front matter fields. Well, we don't have front matter. We don't have timestamps. Transcript chunk format, which is supposed to be the sentence. The book chunk format. Treat these, okay. This should be, so one sentence equals one chunk, right? Multi-line behavior, relative path derivation, validation rules, the meaning of stream offset seconds. No, we don't need that. Any inconsistencies or edge cases. Deliverable, create, docs, transcript, format, analysis, MD. Okay, so this would be docs, book, format, analysis, MD, containing the parsing contract, the validation rules, an example transcript object, book object, an example chunk object. We don't need a calculation rule. Edge cases, files inspected. Okay, constraints. Do not modify book files. Do not create the database. Do not scaffold the application. Done when another developer could implement the importer without reopening the book files. Okay. So here's what I'm wondering. Here's what I'm wondering. Do we just I'm getting, you tell me what you think about what I'm about to say next. I'm getting tired of talking to ChatGPT. I'm just getting tired of these conversations, this back and forth, the constantly having to remind it of things. It is constantly forgetting the context of things. And I just am finding it to be a frustrating process with some of this vibe coding. At the same time, I think it's incredibly helpful and useful at writing really good prompts, and it's really detailed. I might need, once we're done with this, I might need to go on a break from ChatGPT for a while because I'm just finding it to be a frustrating experience. But let's go ahead. I guess we just have to start talking to ChatGPT and help. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so let's go to our projects. Jane Austen. So I'm going to take a screenshot of this and here's our back end. Let's add the requirements and the analyzed transcripts. Let's show it our screenshot so it can see our structure. And yeah, let's just go from here. Okay. Let's go back here. Okay, so I'm starting to work on the requirements and prompts for the Jane Austen database and filter. It's similar to the YouTube transcript database and filter, but not exactly the same. Here's what I have so far. Please review and let's refine together. I learned a lot from the last project. This time I know that I want an Express.js backend for the API, and I know that the chunks are the sentences. We also have metadata / JSON for the books with all characters, places / locations, aliases, etc. The front end will be an e-reader. Okay, let's go from here. Here goes nothing. And hopefully it has some memory of previous conversations. So you have a solid starting point and the scope is much clearer than it was at the beginning of the transcript database project. The architecture, source of truth, chunk granularity, and front-end back-end boundary are already well defined. The first prompt is also correctly isolated as an analysis job rather than an implementation job. The copied terminology from the YouTube project is still showing in a few places. Okay. First, cleanup. Stop calling these transcripts. Well, I'm not doing it on purpose. The copied terminology from the YouTube project is still showing in a few places. Okay. For this project, I would standardize on books, book directories, book files, and sentence chunks, for example. Okay. And scripts import books. So let's do this. Transcript. How about that? Transcript. How about transcripts? Nope. Okay. Simple find and replace took care of that. The prompt title should become prompt 1, analyze book source format. Okay, well, these are analyze book source format. I mean, if this is like the big criticism, then that's not that bad. So we'll say analyze book source. That seems minor, but it will keep Codex from carrying transcript-specific assumptions into the importer, okay? Important distinction, source text versus metadata. Right now, the requirements say the metadata folder is the source of truth. That works structurally, but the name is slightly misleading because each directory contains both emma.txt and emma metadata.json. I would define the contract more explicitly. Each approved book directory contains one canonical plain text book file and one corresponding JSON metadata file. Together, those two files form the source of truth for that book. That prevents metadata from being interpreted as only the JSON. Okay, fair enough. We'll add this sentence. There we go. Each approved book directory contains one canonical plain text book file and one corresponding JSON metadata file. Together, those two files form the source of truth for that book. Okay. The biggest unresolved issue, how sentences map to chapters. You already know one sentence equals one chunk, but the requirements do not yet explain how the importer determines the chapter number, the chapter ID, one sentence or sentence ordinal within the chapter, sentence ordinal within the complete book, paragraph membership, whether chapter headings become chunks, whether blank lines define paragraphs, whether the text files are already sentence separated. This is exactly what prompt 1 should discover rather than assume. The phrase parses metadata and sentence chunk should also be corrected to parses metadata and sentence chunks. More importantly, prompt 1 should explicitly determine whether the text file is already serialized as one sentence per line. One sentence equals one chunk describes the database result, but not necessarily the source format. Okay, so let's find this and correct it, which I think is here. Or is it here? Parses metadata and sentence chunk. So what's different here? Just the chunks is plural. So what am I, okay, so I'm correcting this. So do I need to add something else here? More importantly, prompt one should, okay, so maybe that's what the following things are here. We're going to figure that out next. Okay. Character and location filtering needs one no, this doesn't. Prompt one should explicitly determine whether the text file is already serialized as one sentence per line. One sentence equals one chunk describes the database result, but not necessarily the source format. Okay, so what do I change for prompt one? Okay, so we'll have to ask about that, I guess. Character and location filtering needs one architectural decision. The requirements currently imply that selecting a character or place filters match doesn't imply. It explicitly states that because I added it. The requirements currently imply that selecting a character or place filters matching sentence chunks, but the documents do not establish how a sentence becomes associated with the character or location. There are several possible meanings. Search sentence text for the canonical name or an alias. Store book level characters and locations only, then use them merely to filter books. Pre-compute sentence level entity associations during import. Search FTS using all aliases when a character is selected. These produce very different behavior. Oh, that's true. So if you choose a book from the dropdown, what happens? Well, the keyword has to be required though, right? For example, selecting Elizabeth Bennet could mean return every sentence. No. So, okay, so this is good because in the YouTube transcript database, keyword was required. So choosing things from the dropdown doesn't return anything. You have to have a keyword associated with it. Okay. Okay, so we need to start, look at all this. It's just too much. Okay. Hang on. And it gave us, okay, it gave us an updated thing. But hang on, we have to go back here and like respond to some of these things. The biggest unresolved issue, how sentences map to chapters. Okay. Book date needs a precise definition. The database stores a book date, but that could mean the publication year, the first publication date, the composition date, date of the source edition, date represented in the metadata JSON. Use the exact metadata field and name it accordingly. If it is publication information, publication year or publication date will be much clearer than book date. Okay, fair. The e-reader changes the data contract. The current stated goal is mostly search. Build a searchable database of Jane Austen's novels to help locate source material for an e-reader. But you now know the front end is the e-reader, not merely a search results interface. That means the back end will probably need two related but distinct capabilities. Search API returns matching sentence chunks with enough context to navigate into the reader. Reader API returns a complete book or chapter in reading order. The database should therefore preserve stable reading order identifiers, even if the first implementation job focuses only on importing and search. So there's book ordinal, chapter ordinal, paragraph ordinal, sentence ordinal, and then sentence ordinal in chapter. You do not have to design those endpoints now, but the importer cannot discard the structure the reader will need. Results table may be too prescriptive. Because this is becoming an e-reader, I would loosen this. Okay. You may decide later that results are cards, excerpts, grouped lists, or a reader side search panel. The backend contract should not care. Okay, I agree with that. Suggested revisions to the requirements. Here's how I would revise the opening section. So I think we're going to read this, but I think the thing that I'm realizing is that it's not making the keyword a requirement. So the drop downs themselves don't return anything. There has to be a keyword. Ultimately, you are searching for something. But what if you just want to treat it like an ebook? I don't know. Okay. So this is revisions to the requirements. Build a searchable Jane Austen book database with an Express.js API and an e-reader front end. The application supports reading books and chapters in source order, keyword and exact phrase search, filtering by book, character, and location, navigation from a search result to the matching sentence in the e-reader. The database is not an AI application. Maybe the app is two things. Maybe it's an e-reader and a filter. Maybe it's not one thing. Okay, I'm just thinking out loud. Architecture. One application and one Git repository. The front end and the back end live in the same project. Source of truth. The local metadata directory is the source of truth. Each approved book directory contains one canonical plain text book file, one corresponding JSON metadata file. Yep, okay. The importer reads the local file system. It does not read GitHub or another remote source. Only explicitly approved book directories are imported. Revised prompt 1. I would tighten the first Codex job to this. So is this the entire requirements? Suggested revisions to the requirement. Here's how I would revise the opening sections. Okay, we can do that. Here's the revised prompt. This is a multi-step project. Complete only the job described below. Do not anticipate later jobs. Write application code, create a database, or scaffold the application. When the source files do not establish a reliable rule, document the unresolved decision instead of inventing one. Prompt 1. Analyze the book source format. Analyze the approved book directories and document the exact source format required to implement. Do not write application code. Read the requirements. Inspect only the approved directories inside metadata that are provided for the job. Treat those directories as the complete analysis scope. Each approved directory may contain a plain text book file, a corresponding JSON metadata file. Determine, directory and file contract, expected directory naming, expected text file name, expected metadata file name, whether file names must match the directory slug, how the relative book path is derived, whether extra files or nested directories exist. Plain text book format, whether one physical line equals one sentence chunk, how sentences are separated, how chapters are represented, how chapter headings are represented, how paragraphs are represented, the meaning of blank lines, how wrapped or multi-line sentences behave, whether white space must be normalized, whether headings, front matter, notes, or other non-book text are present, how stable reading order can be derived. Got it. I got it. Okay. JSON metadata format, required top-level fields, optional fields, data types, book identifier and title fields, publication date or publication year fields, chapter, sentence, and paragraph counts, character structure, character alias structure, location alias structure, whether identifiers are unique, whether aliases are unique or may overlap, whether metadata counts agree with the text files, yes. The sentence chunk contract. Determine the values that can be reliably derived for each sentence chunk, including where supported by the source files. So the book ID, the chapter ID or chapter ordinal, paragraph ordinal, sentence ordinal within the book, sentence ordinal within the chapter, sentence text relative book path. Do not assume that a value can be derived when the source files do not support it. Validation edge cases. So document the missing file behavior, malformed JSON, missing required metadata, invalid field types, duplicate IDs, empty books or chapters, empty sentence chunks, mismatched metadata counts, inconsistent file names, unsupported extra files, line ending differences, Unicode punctuation and quotation marks, multi-line sentences, any inconsistencies between books. Deliverable. Create the doc's book format analysis. The document must contain files and directories inspected, directory and file name contract, plain text parsing contract, JSON metadata contract, sentence chunk parsing contract, relative path derivation, validation rules, example normalized book object, example normalized sentence chunk object, inconsistencies and edge cases, decisions required before import or implementation. Use examples taken from the inspected files, but keep examples concise. Constraints. Do not modify source book or metadata files. Do not create or modify a database. Do not scaffold the application. Do not write importer code. Do not design API routes. Do not resolve ambiguities by assumption. Done when another developer could implement the source file reader and validator without reopening the inspected book files, and unresolved format decisions are clearly identified. Holy shit, there are people who do this. This is wild to me. I have so much more respect for the backend people out there. My God, you guys are amazing. Also, I want to say hello, Emilio. I know you're here. Emilio and Monique are here. Hello, welcome. I'm not ignoring you, but also I'm ignoring you. Sorry about that. Okay. One more structural suggestion. I would separate the project prompts into these conceptual stages. Analyze source format, define normalized data model and database schema, implement importer and validation, define API contract and fixtures, implement metadata reader endpoints, implement search endpoint, create disposable front-end proof of concept, build the final e-reader front end, which I'm going to do this. The key improvement over the transcript project is placing the normalized data model and database schema between source analysis and importer implementation. With books, chapters, paragraphs, sentence chunks, characters, aliases, locations, and reader navigation, there are more relationships to settle before Codex starts creating tables. Yeah. The immediate next refinement should be the requirements around reader structure and what character location filtering actually means. Okay, yes. Those are the two parts most likely to affect the entire backend design. Okay, let's update this first and then let's ask our question. So I got a little ahead of myself. It did answer the questions that I had. I just had to keep reading. So where's the whole thing where it's like changed the beginning? Suggested revisions to the requirements. Goal architecture. What's wrong? Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay. And then we did that. Here's revised prompt 1. Sometimes these get cut off down at the bottom, but I think this one's okay. There we go. Okay. I have questions. Hey, but hold please. Okay. I didn't think this was going to take this long. I didn't think this was going to take this long. Yeah. Can we take a break for a moment? Mr. Bassetti is here and says, hello, welcome, thank you. Thanks for coming to hang out. I'm going to ask this question again. If you are not a software engineer, how are you doing this? Because people are doing it. People are vibe coding with no engineering background whatsoever. How are you doing it? I would love to know. And they're successful. They're like learning about engineering, they're learning about development, they are building real things that are out in production being used. Absolutely incredible. I have so much more respect for this process. Wow. You're welcome, Mr. Bassetti, who just graduated in May. Well, congratulations. Congratulations. Okay. Let's get back to it. Okay, so I think let's read down here at the bottom. What does character and location filtering actually mean? Since this is okay, so this is a good question. I guess I was thinking that drop down filtering would not work without a keyword or exact phrase search. So filtering by drop down alone might narrow the options in other drop-downs, like selecting Emma from the title drop-down narrows the character drop-down to only Emma characters, but that alone does not return results, and keyword search is required. That makes the intended behavior much cleaner. The drop-downs are search constraints, not standalone search generators. Keyword or exact phrase is required to run a search. Book, character, and location are optional filters applied to that text search. Drop-down selections may dynamically narrow the available choices in other drop-downs. Changing drop-downs alone does not query or return sentence results. So the user flow is enter a keyword or exact phrase, and we need to talk this through. What is the benefit of keyword or exact phrase if you're searching I guess I know the difference because we kind of tested this in the YouTube database, right? Where keyword could still return a chunk where those words literally existed, just not in that order. So maybe it is good to have both. But I feel like keyword could, if you typed in the exact phrase, you would still get the result that you want. You're just narrowing it to exact phrase. I'm just not convinced we need both. So let's talk that through with ChatGPT next. Okay. Enter keyword, optionally select book, optionally select character, optionally select location, run search, return matching sentence chunks. Selecting Emma would update the character and location dropdowns to show only metadata associated with Emma, but it would not return every sentence from the book. How the filters affect results. The book filter is straightforward. Search for marriage, book Emma, returns sentence chunks containing marriage only from Emma. The character and location filters still need one precise definition. Given your model, I think the most natural behavior is search for marriage, and then the drop-down character Emma Woodhouse returns sentence chunks matching marriage within books where Emma Woodhouse is a character, not necessarily sentences that mention Emma Woodhouse. Oh, that makes sense, because if you search by character Emma Woodhouse, you are in effect searching the book Emma. So if you search for marriage and you searched for, Lizzie Bennett is a character in Pride and Prejudice, so you're returning sentence chunks with marriage in Pride and Prejudice. Got it. That treats the character location metadata as book level scope filters, which matches how your metadata is currently organized and avoids pretending that every sentence has entity tagging. But what is the point of searching character Emma Woodhouse and marriage if it only returns marriage results for the book and not specific to sentences with the word marriage and Emma Woodhouse? I mean, that's a good question. Is that useful? Does that make sense? It treats the characters and the location metadata as book level scope filters, which matches, okay. For Jane Austen, this is useful because of filter combinations such as keyword marriage, book Emma, character Emma Woodhouse, location Hartfield would still effectively search Emma, but the character and location selections would mostly help users understand and narrow the available corpus. However, once a book has been selected, selecting a character or location from that same book may not narrow the sentence results any further unless sentence level associations exist. See, I don't think I like that though. I don't think that character and location should be book level filters. I actually kind of think that the characters and the locations should be more like keyword level filters. Otherwise, what's the point? If you search marriage and Hartfield and all you get back is marriage and Hartfield only narrowed by book and not any mention of Hartfield, what is the point of that? That exposes an important limitation. Book level character and location metadata can narrow which books are searched, but cannot determine whether an individual sentence concerns that character or place. If you want keyword marriage character Emma Woodhouse to mean sentences containing marriage that also mention Emma by name or alias, then the API would need to combine the keyword query with the character's canonical name and aliases. I suspect that may actually be closer to what you envisioned. For example, character Elizabeth Bennet could expand initially to Elizabeth or Miss Elizabeth or Lizzie or. And the result must match the requested keyword phrase and one of the selected character aliases. Yes. The same approach could apply to places. Okay, I was complaining about needing ChatGPT for this, but this is actually really, really good. I would add this requirement now. Search execution. A keyword or exact phrase is required to execute a search. Selecting or changing a drop-down filter does not return sentence results by itself. Drop-down filters may update the available options in other drop-downs. For example, selecting Emma from the book title drop-down limits the character and location drop-downs to characters and locations associated with Emma. When the search is submitted, the API returns sentence chunks that match the required text query and all selected filters. Yeah. Then a decision section, character and location filter semantics. The metadata associates characters and locations with books, not yet with individual sentence chunks. Before the search API is implemented, define whether character and location filters limit the set of books searched or require the matching sentence to contain the selected entity's canonical name or one of its aliases. Drop-down selections alone never return search results. Okay. So this is a requirement. We'll add this to our requirements. And then add a decision section. This is also in the requirements. Oh, so I'm supposed to choose one. Oh, I'm supposed to choose between these. Yeah. My recommendation is option 2 for characters and locations using canonical names plus aliases. Otherwise, after selecting a book, those filters would often have no meaningful effect on the return sentences. Completely agree. So let's add this. And then we'll have it check. I'm going to do this. Okay, the metadata associates characters and locations with books, not, okay. I think I'm just supposed to be, was I supposed to add this whole entire thing? Then add a decision section, yeah. Before the search API is implemented, define whether, so is this supposed to go in analyze or requirements? I'm not really sure. Does this section belong in requirements or the first prompt to analyze? I think it's requirements. Requirements. Okay. Well, this is still, okay, stop. Okay. Here's the updated requirements and first prompt. Here's the thing. Sometimes you edit when you should review. Don't keep editing unless you see something that's obviously wrong. You have a tendency to tighten things up when you should be reviewing the work we completed. Tendency. Okay. So here's requirements and then analyze. All right. Thank you. And yes, I know that's fair feedback, right? Okay. Overall, I think this is in much better shape than the original version. The responsibilities are clearer, the importer is better defined, and you've separated analysis from implementation. Here are the things I noticed. You've addressed the major issues. The project now consistently refers to books instead of transcripts. The architecture is clear. The importer has a defined scope. The API front-end separation is much better. Prompt 1 is appropriately limited to analysis rather than implementation. Do not resolve ambiguities by assumption is exactly the kind of guardrail that helped on the YouTube database. Those are all improvements. One inconsistency. Under search execution, you say when the search is submitted, the API returns sentence chunks that match the required text query and all selected filters. Then immediately after, under character, location, filter, semantics, you say, well, actually, you told me to say it. So those two sections are slightly at odds. The first implies, okay, well then, okay, hang on. When the search is submitted, the API returns sentence chunks that match the required text query and all selected filters. Then immediately after, under character and location filter semantics, you say, before the search API is implemented, define whether character and location, okay. But you're the one who told me to add this. When the search, okay. One wording issue. This sentence caught my eye. Sentence, book, chunks. Okay, let's see if we can find this. Book sentence chunks is the recommendation. Fine. Okay. Propose structure. I like that you renamed import transcripts to import books. Prompt 1. Nothing concerning. One thing I would simply keep an eye on, this isn't something I changed today. Prompt 1 asks Codex to determine things like paragraph ordinal, sentence ordinal within chapter, chapter ID, or chapter ordinal. Those are appropriate analysis questions. The only thing to watch is that if the source files don't actually encode one of those concepts, Codex should report cannot be derived instead of inventing one, which you've already instructed it to do. So I don't think anything needs changing. It's just something I'd pay attention to when reviewing the output. Overall, I think this is ready to use. The remaining questions I see aren't about the documents themselves. They're product decisions you'll naturally make as you start designing the API. That's a much better place to be than where the YouTube database project started. Okay. Tell me how to resolve the inconsistency, because tell me how to resolve the inconsistency, because that's your language that you told me to add. You're right. The cleanest fix is to make search execution describe only what is already decided and leave the unresolved character location behavior in the next section. It's not unresolved. Okay, but wait a second. It's not unresolved. But wait. That's not unresolved. We decided that behavior, right? The intended behavior is a keyword or exact phrase is required. The book dropdown limits results to that book. The character filter requires the matching sentence to contain the selected character's canonical name or one of its aliases. The location filter requires the matching sentence to contain the selected location's canonical name or one of its aliases. Drop-down changes alone do not return results. So the inconsistency should be resolved by updating the character and location filter semantics section, not weakening the earlier search execution section. So here's the character location filter semantics. It's in requirements. Okay, let's read this. The metadata associates characters and locations with books. Character and location filters are applied at the sentence chunk level using the selected entity's canonical name and configured aliases. A returned sentence chunk must match the required keyword or exact phrase, belong to the selected book when a book is selected, contain the selected character's canonical name or one of its aliases when a character is selected, contain the selected location's canonical name or one of its aliases when a location is selected. Drop-down selections alone never return search results. I think that that is great. I mean, I'm so happy to have gone through the process of figuring that out. Yeah, that I think that that's great. I love that. Then this line in search execution is correct and can stay. When the search is submitted, the API returns sentence chunks that match the required text query and all selected filters. The unresolved wording was leftover language and should be removed. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, okay. So I think we're obviously not going to get through all of these prompts today. We might be working on these prompts the whole weekend, and I think that's fine because I really care about this project and I want to get it right. But I need to ask a couple more questions here of ChatGPT. So, I think two things are happening in this app. It's an e-reader and it's a filter. Exactly. That distinction clears up a lot. The app has two related but separate experiences. An e-reader. The e-reader lets someone choose a book, open a chapter, read sentences in source order, navigate between chapters, jump to a specific sentence from a search result. This side needs ordered book structure, book, chapter, paragraph, sentence. Search and filter tool. The filter lets someone enter a required keyword or exact phrase, optionally narrow by book, optionally narrow by character, optionally narrow by location, receive matching sentence chunks, open a result in the e-reader. So the dropdowns belong primarily to the search filter experience, while the book and chapter navigation belong to the e-reader experience. Yeah, it's really two separate things that are happening here, and we have to structure the database in a way that the database supports both experiences, right? That also suggests the requirements should say this more explicitly near the top. The application has two primary functions: an e-reader for reading books and chapters in source order, a search and filter interface for locating matching sentence chunks by keyword or exact phrase with optional book character and location filters. Search results link to the matching sentence in the e-reader. Then the behavior becomes easier to reason about. The e-reader, you browse and read the corpus. Filter, search the corpus and locate relevant sentences. Connection, open a filtered result at its exact location in the e-reader. I think this is the real product model. It is not merely an e-reader with filters or a database search UI. It is two interfaces over the same structured book data. So let's add this at the top of the requirements. I think some of this can be combined. Okay. So the goal is to build a database that supports both functions, right? Yes, that is the clearest statement of the project. The database is the foundation and it must support two application functions, an e-reader and a search and filter. I would, another update. I would update the goal to stop. It's the same. I guess. I guess we don't need this anymore. Kind of the same. Okay. That captures the actual backend objective better than describing the project mainly as a searchable database for an e-reader. The database is being designed for both use cases from the beginning. Okay. Should we run the first prompt and see the results of the analysis before writing the remaining prompts? I feel like we need the results in order to structure the next prompt. In the last project, we wrote all the prompts first. I don't want to write the next prompt until I see the work from the last prompt. Yeah, the YouTube project had an unknown data model, so you spent a lot of time writing prompts up front and then refining them as you learned. It worked, but you also discovered things halfway through that would have changed earlier prompts. This project is different because you've already learned that lesson. I would absolutely run prompt 1 now. We're actually going to do it tomorrow. Here's why. Prompt 1 is intentionally an analysis task, not an implementation task. Its deliverable is essentially a design document. That design document should influence the importer, the schema, and even the API contract. For example, suppose prompt 1 discovers chapter IDs already exist in the metadata. Paragraph numbers don't actually exist. Every sentence is already one physical line. There are inconsistencies in alias structures between books. Those findings should change prompt 2. If you write prompt 2 today, you'll either make assumptions or have to revise it tomorrow. I think the workflow becomes much more iterative. Prompt 1, review the analysis. Make any requirement changes. Write prompt 2. Review prompt 2 output. Write prompt 3. Instead of write all of them, run them, and then revise when reality disagrees. There's another benefit that I think you'll appreciate as a software engineer. Each prompt becomes a contract for the next one. Think of prompt 1 as producing an artifact. Prompt 2 can then say something like, read the requirements, read the analysis. Now prompt 2 isn't guessing how the source data is structured. It is building on an analyzed, reviewed document that you've already approved. I think that's a stronger engineering process. You're replacing assumptions with reviewed artifacts at each stage. So yes, if it were my project, I'd stop here, run prompt 1, review the analysis carefully, make any adjustments to the requirements if necessary, and only then write prompt 2. I think you'll end up with cleaner prompts and fewer course corrections later. Yeah. And I'm going to take a bigger role in what is actually happening in those prompts, because with the YouTube transcript database, ChatGPT was like, here are the prompts. And I was like running the prompts, getting the result, copying that into ChatGPT, and then ChatGPT was telling me to move forward, right? No. I'm going to take I've learned that I have to take a bigger role in what's actually happening. It sounds stupid to say that out loud, but I get it now. I have to read every prompt. I have to understand exactly what we're asking for. I have to see the result of the prompt that just ran and what we got from that. I have to see those things. So, okay. We're at about 2 hours and 15 minutes here. So I think this is a good place to end it. We will definitely start running prompts tomorrow. So I think that we'll get through these prompts. Now that I know that we're going to do one at a time, and we're not going to write the next prompt until we run the last prompt, I think we'll get through the build this weekend. I think it's going to I have a feeling it's going to take the full weekend though. But this was a very, very good planning session. I'm excited to get started tomorrow. We're going to run prompt 1 in the morning, and I think we can get this built over this weekend. And then after that, I have to start thinking about how I want the interface to look. I have to put a little effort into it, as opposed to the last one, which I put 0 effort into. So there's that. Okay. I think this is a good place to leave it for today. Who else is here today? Let's see. Shatanaya is here. Hello. Welcome. Thanks for coming to hang out. Yeah. This was a good one. The planning is really intense. There's a lot of planning, but I mean, it's an incredible process. So everybody, do me a favor. Would you be so kind? Like the video if you haven't yet. Subscribe if you're new here. Liking the video helps the algorithm, helps get this pushed out to more people who are interested in this type of content, helps the channel grow. Subscribe if you're not already. I'm generally here every Saturday and Sunday at about 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, but I do drop in during the week also, usually on Fridays, sometimes during the week. I'm kind of liking the Friday at noon. So yeah, do all the things. It helps. Everybody, have a great rest of your day wherever you are. I will see you tomorrow morning. We're going to keep going. We're going to have a great weekend. Bye-bye.